So there's anyway, one female.
Barker's barrier.
Barker hypothesis.
Yeah, there's definitely a name for that.
Oh, really? So in other words, two children?
For twins, we prefer not to have twins because they're higher risk, so we would tend to steer them away from that.
I was looking earlier, and there's certain stipulations on in future fertilization in China that single women can't do it.
Yeah, but we were just talking.
And that surrogacy is illegal, and that even married couples have to be licensed to be able to have a child, and there's other restrictions that go along with that. Do you know much about that?
So in China, actually, they couldn't have like egg donor. We cannot doing egg freezing, no egg donor, and you're doing the surrogacy. So no gender selection allowed. So this is our restriction right now.
With changing one child policy, it's long term. That's not an immediate result. It's generation. But so things like this, loosening up and things like this, anything that will promote increase in the birth rate, I think would be a policy.
So, the China market for the IVF, almost like a $210 billion.
Yeah.
That's the revenue right now. It's a huge.
Yeah.
The cities
In the
where
city,
there's
yeah,
a
for sure.
hospitals
Yeah, right.
and bigger hospitals, so there is clearly huge demand for treatment.
This year we went to China like 3 or 4 times.
Yes.
So we've been to like 10 or 12 cities.
Yes.
So originally we planned in 2017 we have to build 50 infertility diagnosis center. So far up to date we built a 12 facility in China already. So which means our patient, whatever Chinese patient want to come to United States, so they can go to our IDC center, doing like a pre-checkout and all the in order to get the time to come to United States.
Well, the technology is more advanced in the United States. The facilities which I have seen, they use what we call low stimulation.
Right?
Yeah, they're getting better, but very much what we call low stimulation protocols.
There's definitely a problem with access to care in Hong Kong with regard to, the really affluent. People can get it, but others can't.
Yeah, the traditional Chinese medicine, including acupuncture and Chinese herb, has been used for 1,000 years to treat infertility. A lot of studies has been done in this area to find out the mechanisms. Someone has to try to check whether herbs and acupuncture will work to change the hormone levels. The study already confirmed and indicate the herbs and acupuncture actually normalize as hormone regulations from the hypothalamus, pituitary, and the ovary axis.
So sometimes these traditional Chinese medicine, these herbs become westernized, and I think one of the big malaria drugs started out as a Chinese herbal, traditional Chinese medicine.
Hopefully they'll be more interested, and you should Dr. Lee start doing randomized control studies with the FDA.
So Doc, you're saying
Because herbs is a big word, right? It's herbs. So my herbs and his herbs.
She's a Harvard graduate, and then also the lawyer, Harvard Law School graduate, and then helping 3,000 babies from surrogacy, right?
Yes.
So, yes.
I have a practice in New Jersey, but I'm licensed also to practice in New York, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania. I have a law practice that mainly consists of reproductive law. We do surrogate mother situations, also sperm donors, egg donors, adoptions, insurance appeals, and we do litigations for rights for same-sex couples and surrogacy across the country. I also have an agency, and that's where most of the surrogate babies that Annie was referring to. So for 20 years, I've been helping people around the world find surrogate mothers and screen them through criminal background checks and home studies and make sure they're an appropriate candidate to carry a baby for another couple. And then we shepherdize them through the whole process of finding a fertility clinic and making sure that once the person gets pregnant that she has proper OB care and that the parents are named on the birth certificate. And so with GFG, basically what we're doing is helping mainly Chinese people from China, who because of the one-child policy that was recently lifted, a lot of the women are older and they sometimes need an egg donor and a carrier, which is not allowed in China. So about 20% of our clientele now comes over from China, and we help them with that process. It's a little bit more complicated than a US person because there are citizenship, immigration issues, insurance issues with newborn care, especially if there's a multiple birth. And there's obviously a language barrier, a lot of times between the couple and the gestational carrier who's carrying the baby. So we assist with that as well.
Why is that preferred? Is it, in general, would it be better not to have twins or?
Because the head of SART said we better do that.
Especially if it's a foreign couple and they don't have health insurance for the newborns and they're paying cash pay. It could be a very expensive hospital to stay.
And there can be long-term problems. So incidence of cerebral palsy is increased. IVF twins have a greater incidence of autism.
Some might say Chinese have a propensity to litigate pain, maybe in terms. So is there, has there been any legal experience yet, or a way to know whether they tend to be no more litigious than?
Well, right now there are no published public cases involving a Chinese national coming from Asia suing a gestational carrier. There is only one litigated egg donor case, and it was a very strange case. It was many, many years ago. It is extremely, extremely unusual for a gestational carrier to litigate against the parents. There was one case, I think, last year, but it was a very unusual case. I think the intended father was a single man in his 60s who was deemed unfit to be a father after the children were born. So the litigation end, unfortunately, it normally involves physicians if there is something wrong with the baby or something that happens at the delivery. It's more of a med mal issue, which has really very little to do with gestational surrogacy.
But one thing that we're going to be offering here is a simplified, streamlined IVF using this InvoCell or intravaginal culture device. And the way that it works is that the inseminated eggs are placed into this inner chamber, which is then placed within the outer shell. And then this is placed into the woman's vagina. We do this for 5 days, and so the fertilization and embryo development happen kind of more naturally within the woman's body using her body temperature that's probably more natural than what our IVF incubators use, and relying on her lungs and kidneys and liver to filter out all the ambient toxicities, perhaps better than our incubators do. So we've been using this with great success down in Texas, and we'll be using this here.
Having a patient couples coming from another country, as far as China, to New York, they have to have a trust in the care. We had just a lot of coordination involved, and as mentioned here multiple times, you have to be culturally very sensitive.
Yes, actually, our company, this is only one center. It's our first center in the United States. We debut our international hospital in Hainan. So that is a 500 bed. So it's going to be the biggest IVF center in China, or in the world, I could say that. So we're helping people who they cannot afford to come to the United States, so we can service there in China. The reason is because that is a medical pilot zone. So we can using whatever the medication approved by FDA and then using over there. We also can send our doctors to go over there to see Chinese patients. So this is one we can help in those patients.
Are there any penalties because it's illegal in China if someone comes over and freezes their eggs and somehow find out about it? So it's fine if
See, Chinese culture is I could say Chinese law, You know, see, right now it's like a one-child policy, right? No, before, it was, no, I would say it was one-child policy. So what happened to right now, there's a huge amount of the people, like, the children die. The children die. So the couple in the age like 40, 50. So right now in China, there's one group of the people have that kind of problem. So what happened to that? So if you don't allow them to do this, or to allow them to get a surrogate, to get a second baby, what are they gonna do? Who's gonna taking care of them when they're getting old? So that is the reality. So Chinese
40
government.
years old.
Yeah.
You know what she's saying?
Yeah, they already find out this is a simulation. But the things when they're thinking about how to be legalized, they're taking the time to go through this.
So if couples are known to be carriers for genetic disease, then here we can biopsy the embryos to determine whether or not the embryos will be affected or carriers or just healthy, and then use that in our decision making as to which embryos to transfer back. That's certainly allowable. The other technique of determining whether an embryo is male or female is also allowable. In our experience, in the U.S., there really has not been a preference for male over female. It's usually more of a family balancing issue. They sort of have like one of each.
When they have 4 girls, they start asking.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
But when they come from
It's not a big
China
deal.
to do this,
So if a couple is coming over from China or a single person and they're not married, I'm not going to select a carrier from a state that requires marriage, right? So for instance, Connecticut and Pennsylvania, genetics don't matter as long as the carrier is not related to the baby, and marital status or sexual orientation have no bearing on being able to legally complete the arrangement. So those are going to be good for anybody. Utah, again, and Florida both require marriage. So Tennessee doesn't allow for a foreign couple to use an egg donor with a gestational carrier arrangement. So we're going to stay away from Tennessee for a Chinese couple if an egg donor is involved. If it's their own gametes, it doesn't matter. So basically, I need to know citizenship of the parties, marital status, egg donor, sperm donor, and then we make an analysis of who we're going to choose based on that. Sometimes they like to pick California because it's a little bit closer to home, but once they're getting on a flight to the U.S., those extra 3 hours in the air really shouldn't be making them pick where they're going to have their baby. At least that's just my opinion.